Hello again guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Comic Kid here again, and I wanted to take a quick second to apologize for my brief hiatus. Just went through a bunch of big changes in my life. I had to move, I had to get Wi-Fi set up again, I had to start saving up in order to buy some figures and comics and whatnot again. So I've been away for a minute and I am sorry about that, but I am also super excited to talk about what we have here today. I know these figures have been out on the market for a while, but I finally got my hands on them. I don't know if anyone else out there is from Texas, but for whatever reason I never seem to find figures anywhere I go. But my local comic shop just finally got these back in, and I was really quick to buy them out. But as you guys can see, it is the WV1 McFarlane DC Multiverse Build-A-Figure wave. This is technically the first wave. As you'll notice, the boxes are much bigger. They are slightly taller from like the standard single figures, if I'm not mistaken, but they also have this little window on every side for the Build-A-Figure piece itself. At the moment, I have no idea if that's how they're going to choose to package them in the future. In all honesty, if you do look in the boxes themselves, it looks like there's plenty of space for them to just kind of move it over, and I don't know, the boxes themselves do kind of seem to waste some plastic in my opinion. So they might change it up a little bit, they might not, but these boxes are actually pretty big. They definitely have a lot of shelf presence, and seeing them side by side with the single figures, it's a noticeable difference. That said, aside from the size, it's a pretty standard box for all of McFarlane's figures thus far. You have just the name of the figure on the side right there. On the back you have an image. This is new. It kind of shows what all is in the set for the Build-A-Figure itself. And then you have all the extra ones in the wave down there. This one does seem a little bit limited, at least on the bottom, as to the figures specifically in the Build-A-Figure wave, not all of wave 1. If you remember back on the back of the Superman one that I did, or the Batman one, all of those boxes had extra images for figures in all of wave 1. This one just features the Build-A-Figure waves, and I think as more and more McFarlane figures come out, we'll start seeing just the ones in the specific wave down there. But for the time being, there's that. And then on the side, just a nice little panel looking in. And so yeah, I do think these were some more like interesting figures to release so early on, especially like Batman Who Laughs. I get that he's a very popular character at the moment. I honestly wasn't even gonna buy him, but seeing him in person, I decided, you know what, I definitely wouldn't mind having him. And it's not that I dislike the character, I just don't seem to be as into him as everyone else is. I think he's featured in some really cool storylines, but if it weren't like thanks to Scott Snyder's writing, I don't think I'd care as much about him as other people do. With that in mind, I am definitely excited for the new Nightwing and Batgirl. I've been needing a new Nightwing figure for a while, and with the Rebirth suit being in this wave, I think it's a good one to grab. I'll cover some of the differences between that and the classic, like pre-New 52 Nightwing look, once they're out of the box. But I'm also really excited for this Batgirl figure, and I have one big gripe about her just looking at her in the window. I'll get to that in a minute. But other than that, I really like this new costume. It is based on the Sean Murphy design that he did for Rebirth once she shed her Batgirl of Burnside like purple costume. So it's not like the official start of the Rebirth design costume, but it is the newest and current Batgirl suit, and I actually really like it. So we're gonna go ahead and open these guys up now. Alrighty guys, so here they are out of the boxes, on their stands, and in all their glory. Now, I've heard people say that the Nightwing one is a bit taller than he should be. Personally, I don't think so. He is slightly taller than the Batman Who Laughs and Batgirl, but in my opinion at least, Dick Grayson is definitely the kind of character who can pull that off. If he is the tallest member in the Bat family, that definitely makes sense to me, and I don't mind. At the moment, I'd say he's an appropriate height. Again, these are 7-inch figures. They are a bit taller than your average Marvel Legends and even your DC Multiverse line from Mattel. So it makes sense for them to be a bit taller in general, but I think they're all three well proportioned here. So to start off in terms of general sculpt, I think they did a pretty good job with all of them. If you look at the Batman Who Laughs here, each of these belt buckles is sculpted on there. You can feel the ridges in those as well. Really nice work on the cape down here. It's even got some like scuffs and notches down in there that they didn't really need to put in there, but that's still some nice detailing. He feels like pretty soft plastic all around, at least in the torso and down with the flowy part of his cape. And the spikes on his mask are actually a little sharp. They're not going to hurt you by any means or anything, but they definitely don't bend super easy. And that kind of gives you a hand when you're trying to turn his head as well. So I feel like the sculpt for him is pretty solid. A lot of great details that they probably didn't need to put in there, but did. And so I do appreciate that. Now, instead of talking about the sculpt or whatever factor for each figure individually, I am going to focus on each figure one at a time. So to kind of go back to Batman Who Laughs, as far as the paint goes, I actually think he's one of the better painted figures from the line, at least the first wave. White hands. He's a mostly black figure in general. It's really hard to screw that up. But the little details and the small gray notches just kind of throughout really add a lot of depth and detail to the figure. Not only could they have just simply sculpted that in and probably left it, but it's nice to see the extra little paint there. I do think as though the mouth is a little bit messy. I get that it's supposed to add to the terrifying nature of the figure as well. I do believe it's also based off the jock design for him from the actual Batman Who Laughs comic. I don't know, it gets a little red down in the chin there, and I almost think I'd prefer a standard red-lipped Joker style kind of smile. But there is some nice little detailing in the teeth. They definitely look a little rotten. You guys can kind of see the black notches in there. I do like that. And then I also think that the crown itself could look a little bit more metallic. It doesn't look bad here, but I don't know, maybe a little bit of extra shine would have helped. Now, as far as the posability for this figure goes, he's got the pretty standard McFarlane touches. It's got a pretty good hip joint there, actually. Double jointed knees. That one's a little stiff, but they're fresh out of the box still. Toe joint there, and a ball ankle. So it's pretty standard. I do like how it's not like a soft plastic there. I do think that adds a little bit of extra range for the hips. But unlike other figures in Wave 1, the Batman Who Laughs does not come with an ab crunch, and if you try and bend the figure, you can kind of feel it in there, so it's you know it's there, but the outfit and cape itself is just so hard and stiff that it's not quite worth it in my opinion. You have the bicep swivel there, a double jointed elbow, and again a ball joint in the wrist. Very standard McFarlane figure, and the hand itself can also swivel because of that. And then there's some limited range in the head, but again, the collar of that coat just really kind of holds it in there. So all in all, Batman Who Laughs is not really the most posable figure, but I do think they did a pretty good job given what they have. And they just announced recently that they're about to re-release him with a set of wings. Personally, I think it's a bit too soon to be doing repeats of figures, but oh well. And then lastly, he came with a collectible card, just like all the other McFarlane Toys in Wave 1, and then 2 knives and size and this, that, the other for him to hold to fight whatever other figure. Now, with all three of these figures, I just want to get this out of the way. I do feel as though they could have come with a lot more accessories. All of them feel like they do come with an appropriate amount, but with a lot of them I feel like even just an extra set of hands would have sufficed, just been perfectly fine. But all in all, in regards to Batman Who Laughs specifically, I do think he's a pretty good figure. Very detailed, good posability, not the best, but for a first go, pretty solid. Now, to get into the Nightwing figure, you'll notice it is the Rebirth costume, and there aren't many key differences from the Rebirth suit from the New 50 or the pre-New 52 version, but there are a few noticeable ones, especially in the blue down on the legs down here. The classic Nightwing, or I guess not classic, but the pre-52 version of the character did not have those blue stripes on his leg, and he also had a black mask instead of a blue one. Now this is very accurate to the Rebirth version of the suit, and I do still like it, but that is how you can tell the difference between like a classic Nightwing design and a Rebirth Nightwing design. Again, they just announced that they're going to be redoing this figure. It's the exact same thing, but all the blue will be swapped out for red to look much more like the New 52 version. The mask in that one will be black with the eyes painted red, just like it is in the comics. But again, as far as sculpt goes, I do think they did a pretty good job. I do feel as though the ball joints on the ankles really kind of stand out in this figure. And I guess here they're not so noticeable, but when you see it in person it can look a little awkward. Perhaps once he's posed it won't be as bad, but I do think he's much better proportioned than the DC Essentials one. That one is also at a 7-inch scale, and I don't hate that design by any means, but its arms look a little bit too long and muscular for my taste, and while I think his arms might be a little skinny in the sides here, I do think it's a bit of an improvement from the DC Essentials one. Now, in terms of paint, I am again pretty impressed with the paint job. I haven't noticed any paint like splotches. They probably could have thrown some blue in on that shoulder swivel there and I wouldn't have cared, but it's not gonna break the figure for me by any means. Kind of like with the Superman figure though, they added some shininess to his hair. Personally, I don't care for that one way or the other. I think it would have been fine if it were matte or whatever, but I think it's very reminiscent of Dick Grayson, and overall I think they did a pretty good design with the paint and all that. Now with articulation, you'll notice there's a lot of the exact same stuff from Batman Who Laughs, except this time he's got that additional shoulder swivel, which just doesn't give you a whole lot, but when you're trying to pose the figure, that extra range of motion there really can come in handy. And then he also has this rubberized hip joint, and it means that his leg can't come as far forward as with characters like the Batman Who Laughs. Like, you still get a pretty good range there, but that joint there can definitely crease if you leave it like that. That said, I do think it does a good job of hiding that joint. Being that kind of really flexible rubber definitely doesn't give you that break in the hips that like characters like Batman Who Laughs has, and so there is that added bonus. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was he does have these hooks in his back for his Eskrima sticks, which are the only two accessories he comes with. Again, I feel like he could have used a few more accessories, maybe just an extra hand or two, maybe a grapnel gun of his own or anything, but for the most part the Eskrima sticks will be perfectly fine. And then he does come with his own trading card as well. And then last but not least, we have the newest Barbara Gordon Batgirl action figure. I do think this is a really good suit. This is definitely one of my favorites that she has. I didn't hate the purple suit by any means, I just definitely prefer this one. Again, in the comics it was designed by Sean Gordon Murphy. It is a little different from his White Knight version of the Batgirl suit, but it's also the current running one in the comics. Now, because it is based off of Sean Murphy's design, that's one of the biggest complaints that I have in terms of her face. Now, having her out of the box, it actually doesn't look that bad, and I think Murphy's style actually suits it, but I do think there's just a little bit extra missing that could have really made this figure an absolute home run. It's kind of like McFarlane's Ochako Uraraka My Hero Academia figure. There's just something there missing that really keeps the face alone from being perfect. And I don't know if it's like a different shade of red for her hair or like a small tweak to the sculpt here and there, but really the face is the only issue I have with this figure. As far as the rest of the sculpt goes, I think the cape is sculpted beautifully, especially in the back there. I just really like how McFarlane did that. You got sculpting on her actual boots there. That's a 3D piece. Her belt is sculpted and the bat symbol is sculpted, and it kind of goes all the way up over her shoulders. In the comics, it actually functions as like a small backpack as well, and so it's really cool to see that in the figure also. As far as the paint goes, I do think they did a pretty good job. There are a few breaks between the ears and the red up here. Not enough to be a deal breaker or anything. And then because the symbol piece is 3D, it kind of looks like a paint job problem, but when you actually see it in real life, it's perfectly fine. Again, I'd have probably gone for a slightly different shade of red on the hair, but it gets the job done, and it's still definitely Batgirl. Now, as far as her articulation goes, there's really not much different between her and Nightwing. One thing that I love that McFarlane does even better than Hasbro is his female figures all come with double jointed elbows. That just really helps sell them for me, especially in terms of posability. And then her shoulder joints are actually pretty strong. I don't know if the Nightwings are just a little stiff on my figure or what, but those shoulder joints definitely really help sell it. I also feel as though the boots really kind of hide the ball joint in the ankles, and the gloves kind of hide it well in the wrists as well. And again, the only thing I kind of wish that she had was an extra set of hands. She does come with this grappling hook that's like mid-fire, and so I kind of like how it's a little twisty there. I do think that might have been a little bit better also. Maybe have one that's not so tangled, or have the option to detach it, something, I don't know. But I also feel as though the batarang she comes with is very thick, especially in comparison to the size of her hands. I don't think it looks bad, I just think it could be a little bit smaller given the scale of the figure. But overall, I really like this Batgirl. She's definitely going to be replacing the one that I currently have on my DC shelf, and so I'm super excited to have her. Now, of course, there's still the matter of the Build-A-Figure itself to discuss. For this wave, Wave 1, it's actually a vehicle and not an actual other figure. At the moment, he has confirmed that the Merciless will be the Build-A-Figure for Wave 2, and I do think that's a very smart choice on McFarlane's end, and I think the Merciless will be the perfect figure to do in that type of format. But for Wave 1, it is the Batmobile. Now, he comes in 3 separate pieces here, and this is specifically Sean Murphy's Batmobile from the White Knight storyline. But as you can see, it's smaller, not to scale. I think it'd be difficult to do a Batmobile to scale for a 7-inch figure line, although if they found a way to pull it off, I think that would be absolutely amazing. So I'm a little disappointed that they didn't just try and do another DC character, but I do think they did a pretty good job with this as well. Everything just kind of pops in nicely. It is a little difficult But there you have it. It's nice and sleek and well painted and just small. It makes a nice little accessory. It's probably not gonna go on any shelf of mine. I do have other Batmobiles that I have on display in my house, and I might be able to find a spot for it, but it's nice. It does roll back and forth. The front wheels don't turn, and so for a first go, like, I get it. They wanted to do something small. You gotta kind of test the waters coming right out of the gate and all that. But I'm definitely looking forward to seeing more actual DC characters for Build-A-Figures in the future. But that is everything we have for you guys today, and before I go, I did want to ask what other kind of content you guys wanted to see on the channel. A lot of you guys really seem to like the run versus runs. I'm happy to do more. If that's the case, I'd love to know who you'd like me to compare and talk about. If you want to see more comics or more figures and whatnot in general, like, I'm always happy to discuss whatever you guys would like to talk about. I don't think I'd ever stop doing figure or like comic videos if that's what y'all wanted, just because I have such a passion for them. But I'm definitely open to adjusting things to suit whatever you guys would like to see. So feel free to click like and subscribe. Let me know what y'all think down in the comments, and I will see you guys again real soon.